Karen reads witnesses, who's on the list and why. No surprises here because we have the court docs to back it up. No surprises, we start off strong with a ton of Alberts. Brian?
I don't remember if I saw a ambulance. There were emergency vehicles out there, but I can't remember exactly which types.
Caitlin?
It may not have been set in stone, but it was definitely spoken about, and then that's what ended up happening, yes.
Have you ever told anyone that before, Ms. Albert, that the plan from the start of the night was that Tristan was going to make 4 trips total from Canton to Easton, Easton to Canton, Canton to Easton? Have you ever told anyone that before?
I don't remember if I mentioned that to anybody.
That was the first time you've ever said that just now before this jury. Would you agree with that?
I believe so.
Almost 2.5 years after January 29th, correct?
Correct.
Chris?
You know former police chief Kenneth Berkowitz in such a way that you feel comfortable calling him before this jury Kenny Berkowitz, correct?
I know Kenny, yep.
And he's actually donated to your campaign when you were running for town selectman, correct?
Correct.
And
Colin?
You provided just the screenshot, ultimately, not the actual text, correct?
Correct.
But in September of 2023, Michael Proctor's partner, a man by the name of Yuri Buknik, you know that name?
Yeah.
He contacted you and said he wanted to talk about your text messages, correct?
I don't remember.
Do you remember that you told Yuri Buknik when he asked about the text messages, you did not have the screenshot anymore, you sent it to your father, Chris?
I don't remember that.
Do you recall telling Yuri Buknik if he wanted to get the screenshot, you weren't going to give it to him, he'd have to get it from your dad?
Do not remember that.
You remember Trooper Buknik agreeing with you and saying, sure, I'll just call your dad and get it from him?
Don't remember that.
You certainly don't remember ever giving Trooper Buknik a copy of that screenshot.
No, I don't remember.
Because you didn't, did you?
I do not remember.
But you did give it to your dad, right?
I do not remember.
Do you remember anything about this case?
Julie?
you didn't know precisely where your son Colin was that night, correct?
I knew where he was.
Where was he?
He was at his friend Michael Leonetti's. He left Michael Leonetti's to stop to say happy birthday to my nephew Brian at 34 Fairview Road.
Okay. And you learned that from him, correct?
Yes.
So you had learned that Colin was at 34 Fairview on January 29th of 2022, correct?
January 28th. The Fred.
So is it your testimony that you know that Colin left on Friday night as opposed to after midnight on January 29th?
I don't understand what you're asking.
What just occurred is I asked you whether you knew that your son Colin was at your sister-in-law Nicole's and your brother-in-law Brian Albert's house on January 29th, and you just corrected.
I'm sorry, it was after midnight.
Okay.
So I got confused. I apologize.
Not a problem. So the answer to my question is you learned that he was there on January 29th, correct?
Yes, after midnight.
And you now know that that is the same house outside which John O'Keefe was found dead that morning, correct?
Yes, I do.
Kevin and Nicole.
She may have placed those phone calls to me, but I never answered them.
You received a call from Jennifer McCabe on January 29th at 6:07:42 a.m. that lasted for 9 seconds, correct?
She may have placed a phone call to me. I never answered it. I never spoke to her that morning.
You also received a second call from your sister at 6:08:17 a.m. that lasted for 7 seconds, correct?
Objection.
Go ahead and answer that.
It says that, but I never answered a phone call from my sister Jennifer that morning.
You're aware that cell phone companies have what are called tolling records, correct? That show if there's a voicemail or something of that nature.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Ms. Albert, it's your testimony here today that you never spoke to your sister that morning.
I never spoke to my sister on the phone that morning.
Who else was in your bedroom that morning?
Me and my husband.
You and Brian Albert were the only two individuals who could have answered those calls that morning, correct?
We're the only two people in the room, besides the dog.
And at 6:07 a.m., someone had a 9-second call with Jennifer McCabe, correct?
Objection.
Following the Alberts, we have a divorced husband-wife couple, Michael and Cheryl. They actually were attacked by Chloe, Brian Albert's dog. Paul Makowski is Karen Reed's private investigator. Leslie Bernstein and Rebecca Bazin are both Canton residents, so I'm assuming they've got some stories about the local townies. Officer Nicholas Barrows is a Dighton police officer. He's the one that saw Karen Reed's taillight and stated during trial 1 that he only saw it cracked, not smashed.
I saw that there was some damage to the right rear taillight. To my best ability and recollection, that taillight was not completely damaged. It was cracked and a piece was missing, but not completely damaged.
Trooper Evan Brent, we already saw, as well as Sergeant Yuri Bukwakwa. Lori Cahill's an interesting one. She actually was working at Gillette Stadium when Michael Proctor himself saw that she was wearing a free Karen Reed pin, and he goes, "You don't know who I am. Karen Reed is 100% guilty." Trooper Zach Clark, another Mass State Trooper. The Curran family, who have been subjected to drama, thanks to the McAlberts. Ricky Diatano, the truck driver, the one that drove Ryan Nagel and Heather Maxson, the one that was supposed to pick up Julie Nagel. That's Ricky.
Also didn't notice at any point anybody standing outside that SUV?
Not to my knowledge.
And you never saw anybody sitting in the snow or in the street or on the lawn outside the SUV?
Not to my knowledge,
And
no.
you never saw anybody lying outside that SUV, is that fair to say?
Yes. From the time that you were in front of the house until you left, you never saw anyone go in or out of that house or in and out of that vehicle, the black SUV in front of you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And while you were not monitoring the activity around the SUV, you never saw anyone around the SUV, correct?
Correct.
Officer Kelly Dever was doing dispatch. She took over for Sean Good at Canton PD. She knows the innings and goings of Canton PD of January 29th, 2022. Stephanie Devlin with the Mass State Police Crime Lab. David DeChico, a Massachusetts State Police trooper, who, very interesting, not only was in Proctor's text messages, but also he actually stated to Proctor he was reviewing some of the footage and saw the footage of Karen Reed coming home from 34 Fairview that early morning. Meaning at one point, that footage existed because David DeChico saw that footage and specifically talked about Karen Reed's taillight and, surprise, surprise, mentioned nothing of it being smashed. Pat Haggerty was the tow truck driver that towed Karen's vehicle from Dighton to Canton PD. Maureen Hartnett with the Massachusetts State Crime Lab. You know, Brian Albert Jr., Brian Higgins, Louis Jutrus, I can never pronounce his name right, works for the town of Canton and would have gotten all of the video footage from all of the cameras. Trooper Connor Keefe, you already saw. Matt Kelly with Canton Fire Department was there when they found John O'Keefe.
You heard her say, he's dead, he's fucking dead, something like that, correct?
Correct.
And she didn't say it in the tone of voice that I just said it, correct?
Correct.
She was screaming when she said that, correct?
Correct.
It was very easy for you to discern that her words were, he's dead, he's fucking dead, correct?
Correct.
And she repeated it more than once, correct?
Correct.
And it's fair to say that at no point in time did you ever hear her say, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, correct?
Correct.
Also, the Kolakithises, which is the Greek couple that was with Karen and John at the waterfall. Again, they're some of the last people that saw John O'Keefe alive. Harry Kuhn with UC Davis, she's the one that did the testing on John O'Keefe's shirt to prove if there was dog or not on it. Spoiler alert, she found pig DNA as well as keratin. Guess what's on dog's teeth? Keratin. Canton Police, Sergeant Mike Lank, heavy McAlbert influence, Brian Lucky Loughran, the plow driver, Heather Maxson, we already saw, the McCabes, Allison, Ellie, Jen, and Matt, Lance Mello, Mass State Crime Lab, we already heard from Ryan Nagel, Steve Nelson from the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, I hope they call. He is the victim's witness advocate that Jen McCabe called when the Fed showed up at her house. Steve Nelson is also the person that would have tipped off Brian Albert and Brian Higgins about the subpoenas about their cell phones. You know how both of them got rid of their cell phones 24 hours before the court ordered them to hand them over? Andre Porto, Mass Crime Lab, already saw him. Holly Price, I also want them to call. She is a Google analyst, aka all things Google phones. Trooper Kathleen Prince, Mass State Police. Elizabeth Lizzie Proctor, who is the wife of the now disgraced former trooper Michael Proctor.
Because the evidence pointed to this woman killing a fellow Boston police officer. So he was angry, he was upset by that. So I understand the need that he had to vent to friends, whether it was appropriate or not.
Harry Roberts, we already saw. Wendell Robbery from Canton Fire Department. These next two I also personally want to see. From Boston Police Department, worked with Brian Albert on the fugitive unit, Stephen Ridge and Gilberto Hernandez. Both men are very familiar with Brian Albert, his actions, and Gilberto also apparently got jumped by Brian Albert at one point. Two other interesting folks from Canton, the La Pilato brothers. These two don't get spoken enough about, and they need to. They sued the town of Canton and also Mike Link and a couple other Canton PD officers because they decided to basically take care of these brothers because of Chris Albert. Still to this day, these two brothers catch hell from the McAlberts in town. Lieutenant Brian Tully, scum of the earth. Courtney Proctor, Mike Proctor's sister, who got fired for also wishing Karen Reed to be dead. Tristan Morris, Caitlin Albert's fiance.
The plan from the beginning was not for you to leave the waterfall, go to Easton, and then drive back from Easton to Canton to pick up Caitlin and then take her back to Easton so that you could wait for the call for plowing. That was not the original plan, correct?
No, it wasn't.
No, of course it wasn't. But the plan changed, correct?
Yes.
And that was because you heard from your girlfriend, Caitlin, correct?
Yes.
And I'm going to ask you a question and hope I get an answer. Do you recall what time it was that she contacted you?
No, I don't recall.
Did anybody instruct you not to talk about any times that anything happened?
Absolutely not.
Dean Demulis, the GM over at CF McCarthy's. Mary Souza is listed as living in Dighton, so I don't know if she works for Dighton PD, was a dispatcher, or maybe she was neighbors of Karen Reed's parents, so maybe she knows something. Ashley Bell, another Canton resident, she can testify to some McAlbert actions. She also might be able to touch upon issues such as Sandra Birchmore. Mike Rushworth, one of Proctor's friends, was on the text message thread where he called Karen Reed a whack job cunt. Matthew Armory, I believe, works in the Canton Public Library. And then come some heavy hitters. Norfolk County DA, my district attorney, Michael Morrissey. I doubt Bev Cannoni will allow him to be able to testify, but if he does, he will be the best one to watch out of any of the witnesses. Tom Beatty and his daughter, Erin Beatty. Colin Albert called Erin the night of John O'Keefe's murder at 12:30 a.m. Thankfully, she didn't answer. Remember, Jen McCabe called Tom Beatty over and over again that morning. And this is why I have no problem naming out their kids, because they don't want to talk about the fact that they still harass Tom Beatty and his daughter, Erin. Erin, who was around the same age as a lot of their kids. Maybe they should get the hint and just leave Erin alone. 2020 producer Megan Mariani was there for a situation right outside D&E Pizza. Jen's sister, Denise Galvin, the one that we heard about in Try, her husband, so Jen's brother-in-law, and Chris Albert's #1 fanboy that works at D&E Pizza, Jim Ferris, literally came outside of D&E and blocked Karen Reed, Megan Mariani, and Alan Jackson in their SUV and wouldn't let them leave the parking lot. John O'Keefe Sr., which now I understand should be John O'Keefe Jr., that is John O'Keefe's dad. And I get it, this is why Peg said what she said on the stand, because technically John O'Keefe, the Boston police officer, was the third, and that was whole Peg spiel about it.
Are you married?
Yes,
Who are you married to?
John O'Keefe Jr.
How long have you been married for?
Too long. 53 years.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't hear you.
53. Long enough?
Matt Kelsch, a ATF agent, a fellow federal agent, Brian Higgins' friend, he allowed Brian Higgins to use the software to pull the data out of his cell phone, the ones that show the text message of Karen Reed and Brian Higgins. Tommy Kelleher, Canton Police Department, the neighbor across the street from 34 Fairview Road, Brian Albert's home. Speaking of neighbor, Annie Chung, who lived right next door, she woke up to all the commotion. The now Canton Police Chief, Helena Rafford, the medical examiner we already heard from, Dr. Irene Scorti-Bello, Trooper Jeff Kokowski was also on Proctor's text messages. I'm sure we all know Trooper Pirouette Paul.
So how did his arm get all cut up?
Because when his arm struck the taillight then cracked, and as the car driving past him, the taillight could scratch it.
Got it. So he gets hit by the car, not his torso, just the arm. The taillight cracks, and as it passes by, his arm stays with it long enough to get striations, those scratches that we see, those lacerations, those abrasions that we see, right?
In a sense, yes.
And at the same time, he does a pirouette and flies 30 feet to his final point of rest.
I don't know if he did a pirouette.
Well, I'm using the word pirouette. He spun around.
He started rotating counterclockwise. I don't know how far he ran counterclockwise, but he started rotating. According to that, would push him to rotate counterclockwise. Whether he went counterclockwise all the way to his back toward the ground, it seems like a most likely possibility.
Canton Police Department, Paul D. Giampietro, I always pronounce his name wrong. He had all that missing footage from Canton Police Department. And finally, we already heard from Sergeant Paul Gallagher, Canton PD. Other than that, the rest are all experts from Karen's side. That is it for witnesses. If they want to add to this list, because there can't be any surprise witnesses, they have to file a motion and then Bev Cannoni is going to have to allow it. Most likely, you're going to see a whole hearing on it.
Insults of my client. I'll be kind and just mention the word.
So I read them.
Yes. Okay. Well, I mean, Your Honor, if you're going to allow this into evidence, I'll stop talking. Otherwise, I have to make my argument.
I understand what you mean by insults.
Okay. So I won't even mention them then.
Gonna see Hank Brennan complaining about it. Probably complaining about ambush or whatever he wants to talk about.
Mr. Brennan is not sitting at defense counsel table in this case. We appreciate the offer to help us with strategy about which witness we should call, but that's solely the province of the defense to determine which witness we want to use to authenticate and admit text messages. That's our choice, and we should not be deprived of that choice because Mr. Brennan thinks there's a better witness that should have introduced the text messages. There is no rule. There's no best witness rule in this case.
So for now, these are the humans you may see on Karen Reed's side. Yes, she can call any of them, including Jen McCabe again. Stay tuned, because it's going to be so good.